Well, I've got the 93 Lesabre in here. I've got to do a few things to it. I've got to change the rotors, and while I'm under there I'll check and make sure tie rods and ball joints and wheel bearings and all that are all good. I may replace the grill. I don't know yet. I've got a rattle in the back. I think it's the heat shield for the muffler. I'll probably crawl under there and check it just to make sure. I'll check all the tire pressures, make sure they're good. And then, oh, I should probably put a little face on my smiley ball. The smile is gone. I'll have to think of something. Now, if you've got a Buick with these steel wheels and little wire hubcaps, there's kind of a trick to getting them off. First, you got to pry out this little center cap right there. And then you use this special little tool and stick it in there and turn that to get it off. Let's see if I can get it in there. Well, you get the idea, and you turn that and it comes out, and then you can pry the wheel off, or the hubcap off. You don't want to just stick a screwdriver in there and start prying it off because you'll bend the hubcap. Well, apparently that metal one wasn't the right tool. I had to use this green one. You can tell because they got little letters in there. I don't know if you can see them, but there's a B and a P on this one. And the lock, the little thing that screws in there, has a P and a G. And this one here has a P and a G. So pretty easy to figure out what goes to what. You just gotta look at the letters. Now I can pry the hubcap off. Well, I found the reason, well, part of the reason for the shaking. My ball joint is starting to go on the bottom there, and it shakes quite a bit. And you can see my tire. I don't know if you can see that, but it's worn here on the outside, and it's also worn on the inside, which tells me the wheel's been flopping back and forth, and alignment's been going out. And I don't want to put a new tire on it because it'll just wear it out just like this one. Another problem I found is underneath. That big rust hole I've got right there, right where the control arm bolts up to it. I can actually take my hand and I can move the part where the control arm bolts to with my hand. So that's not really good. So I'm going to have to put a new subframe in it, which I got to take out of either the 97 or the 95 Buick Lesabre. I had one out of a 95 Park Avenue, but of course I didn't think I'd need it. Well, I didn't think I'd need that subframe off the 95 Park Avenue I got, so I gave it to the scrap man. Probably a good idea because it was in a front end rack, so it may have been bent and tweaked and wouldn't have held an alignment good anyway, but sure would have been nice to have. Didn't have any rust on it. Yeah, that's why I don't usually throw things away. But I'll go ahead and take the wheel off and see if that rotor is warped. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'll show you. Well, I've got the tire off so you can see it a little better. This is the outside of the tire. It's pretty bad. It's all cracked and checked because it's so old. And here's the inside of the tire, which is even worse. You can see all the cupping, and it's just not good. Not good at all. So I think I've got a good tire on the back I can put on the front after I fix it. And let's see if I can get you a decent shot of the ball joint. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this quite yet, but see if I can get it to get you a good picture. I don't know if you can see it there, but I'll move it. I don't know if you can see that move back and forth as I wiggle the wheel, but I could probably put grease in it and see if that helps, but if I'm going to replace the subframe, I'll just replace that while I'm at it. Along with the bushings there, they're all cracked up. I'll replace those. I'll replace the rotors. Brake pads are still good, so I'll keep those. And I think I'll just do the tie rod ends as a, you know, just to do them because they're old. So I got all the parts, I just got to do it. Well, here I've got kind of a nifty little tool. It's basically a dial indicator hooked to a vice grip. What you do is you put lug nuts on the rotor so that it can move back and forth, and then you place this so it's touching the surface of the rotor, and you just spin the wheel and you see how much it moves back and forth, the little needle, and I'll tell you how many thousandths your rotors are warped, if they're warped. And this one's really not so bad, maybe a thousandth or two at most. So I'll have to check the other one, but I think I'm going to leave this one alone for now, and we'll jack up the other side and I'll see how that one looks. Well, I took the lug nuts off to show you why you have to have lug nuts on the rotor when you do this test. So I'm going to try to get a good shot of the dial indicator there and just show you as I spin the wheel how much it moves if you don't have lug nuts on it. See, look at that. Wobbles all over, and if you do this you'll think every rotor you have is warped because it moves back and forth when you spin it. So always put lug nuts on it. I think this rotor may be off of a 95 Park Avenue because I replaced some brakes and one rotor on when my grandparents had this car. I think. I can't quite remember, but we'll check the other side and see what it looks like. Well, I've checked this rotor and it seems to only be 1 or 2 thousandths out, so it's not too bad, but I'm going to replace them anyway because I've got new ones when I do the subframe, which won't be for a while. Now you can diagnose warped rotors without this fancy tool. Basically, if you hit the brakes and your car shimmies and shakes, it's most likely warped rotors. The way you would check is just check everything else. Check all your tie rods and ball joints and wheel bearings and make sure they're good. And if everything in the suspension and steering looks okay, then just take the rotors off and take them up somewhere that turns them and say, I think these are warped, could you check them for me? And they should be able to do it. I guess I won't be driving this to Minneapolis at 80 miles an hour anymore, but I'll tool around town until I get that other subframe out and replace this one. Well, I crawled up underneath and I looked at the shield over the muffler there, and it's a little bit loose, but it's not going to fall off, so I'm going to leave it alone for now. And I got a little face on my smiley ball now. I like it. Must add 10, 15 horsepower right there. Sweet.